Hello everyone, welcome back to the audit classes of ethics, professional responsibility and general principle. In this class, we'll be discussing ethics, independence and professional conduct, which is a new topic. And in this, the first topic is AICPA, Code of Professional Conduct. This is part 1 of the video for the AICPA, Code of Professional Conduct. Mind it, we have part 2 as well for the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct, which is coming just after this. Please stay tuned for the part 2 as well. Now let's dive into the part 1 of AICPA Code of Professional Conduct.
And this topic is ethic, independence and professional conduct. So this topic is very much common in your audit section as well as in regulatory section also. You will be learning the same thing, right? So please focus on this AICPA professional code of conduct. This is very much important from exam point of view, both regulation as well as audit exam point of view. And at the end, when you are doing your own practice, when you are working as a CPA in a job, or when if you join to be an educator like me, then also this professional code of conduct would be very much relevant for each one of you to follow throughout your life, right? So this AICPA professional code of conduct, this is being applicable to the member who are in practice, like the CPA who has taken the license and they are doing their own practice, right? Whether they are providing accounting service, audit service, tax service, it's applicable to everyone, right? And the members who are in business or who are in job. So there are so many CPAs who worked in many companies, especially in a big four company, there are so many CPAs, right? So this act is also, this code of conduct is also applicable to the CPA who are in job. Or in addition to that, if you are doing any business also, then also you need to adhere to the AICPA professional code of conduct, right? In addition to the members who are in job, who are in business, who are in public practice, it is applicable to all other members like the retired CPAs or educator like us, right? So this act is being, or this code of conduct is being applicable to all CPAs, whether you are in practice, not in practice, you are in job, you are in business, you are in educator, or even you are retired, right? Once a CPA is always a CPA, right? So in this AICPA professional code of conduct, we have 6 principles, 9 rules, and certain interpretation and guidance, around 13 interpretation and guidance, right? What are those 6 principles for which you should be aware of, or for which you should be adhere to throughout the rest of your life after becoming a CPA, right? First is the responsibility. Being a CPA, it's a like heavy, huge responsibility on each one of us after becoming a CPA, because like public do trust on us, right? So we have certain professional responsibility, we have certain moral responsibility toward the interest of the public. So we should be adhere to those responsibilities which is being laid down in the AICPA professional code of conduct. So that's very important, because like once you are a CPA, public look at you as a CPA, not as a 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐩𝐿, not as Kamal, not as Ayush, or not any other individual member, because they consider you as a CPA. And CPA body, which is AICPA, the world number 1, or you can say world highest renowned professional body. So they do not want like any Tom, Dick and Harry, well, you can say impact on the value they have created in the market for the CPA as well as for the AICPA, right? So they want each one of us to adhere to those professional code of conduct, and there are certain expectations that public do have from a CPA, how a CPA should behave and how a CPA should act. So we need to adhere to those responsibility all the time. Once a CPA is always a CPA, right? So it doesn't mean whether it's like 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐩𝐿, it's a Kamal, or it's Gurmeher, or it's Jaspreet, or XYZ. So if you are a CPA, so public consider you as a CPA, and image of AICPA is being attached to you, right? So it's being your responsibility to adhere to those professional code of conduct. Second thing is the public interest. So here, like I have laid down all those principles, rules, interpretation, names, so that you have at one page quick summary for your exam purpose. Like in last minute when you are doing the revision, you have at one page everything, but one by one we'll be going in detail of all those 6 principles, 9 rules, and all the interpretation and guidance, right? So what all those principles are, let's understand, and then we go one by one in detail for the respective principle. But more or less these all are ethical things. You may see like a couple of things if you are already a chartered accountant or you have already studied any other professional course. I'm sure like most of the code of conducts or professional code of conducts are very much similar, and their requirements and the requirement of AICPA is very much similar. But and in addition to that, like you will see like a lot of principles and rules are overlapping, or you can say communicating the same thing again and again. But the key objective and intent of these rules, principles, interpretation, and guidance is that you should be knowing what you need to do, and more importantly, what you are not supposed to do, right? Third is like work with integrity. So integrity include like working with honesty. What is right, say it is right. What is wrong, say it is wrong, and follow the rules and regulation, which include like any compliance of any law, regulations, or any new interpretation or new guidance which has been came up from the any regulatory body. So that's called work with the integrity. And then like fourth principle is objectivity and independence. Anyone have any idea what is objectivity or what is independence? Anyone would like to share?
Objectivity is something which is purely data driven or backed by certain evidences or examples, I mean numbers.
Mhm.
And independence is that the person whosoever is doing the audit, he should be independent of giving his opinion or doing his proper preparing his work papers. I mean, it should not be impacted by anything else outside of his environment.
Mhm. Okay. How about others? Would you like to guys add anything? Ayush, Gurmehar, Ulak, Garvit, Rahul. What's your thought on objectivity and independence? What do you mean? Like, what do you feel like objectivity would be or independence would be?
So the auditor must not have any personal opinion or a favor towards it. And he should work objectively. That means just based on the numbers, just based on the company's performance.
Yeah, makes sense. Yes, absolutely true. Thanks, Avneet and Jaspreet, for sharing your insight. Yes, absolutely. Like objectivity is independence and objectivity goes hand in hand. One is you should be unbiased. You should not have any interest in the entity for which you are performing the audit engagement or attestation engagement, and so that you should be unbiased toward that particular entity, and what you will be behaving, reacting, or sharing your judgment or your experience, or you can say the knowledge with the client is based on the facts and the figures which is being presented in front of you, or facts and figures and informations which you have audited, right? So that's an objectivity and independence rules. We'll be discussing more in detail on that. Next is due care. What do you understand by due care? Any idea? Why a CPA should act with due care? Maybe if I simplify.
I mean, I'm just going to give it a try. Maybe whatever procedures that an auditor is performing in doing any audit, he has to comply with what he has learned, or maybe uh, follow the exact guidelines or what has been stated in the entire law, rather than making his own assumptions or taking his own calls on certain areas. But everything should be driven by whatever is mentioned in the law as such.
Yeah, makes sense. How about others? Anyone would like to add what Jasprit said?
The auditor should act in a way like when he is auditing the
Hmm.
auditing of an entity, he should apply all the standards and whatever is possible so that the audit is done as per the standards, so
Hmm.
that there is no deviation. And also he should check for if there are any little misstatements. He should not be biased towards identifying it, and he should apply all the due care that can be so that the results are correct.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Anyone else would like to add to Ayush and Jasprit?
So, Ayush and Jaspreet has already added it. I just wanted to add if there are certain areas where we have to apply judgments, right?
Hmm.
You will
Hmm.
not find something in the books and you have to apply judgments. Then
Hmm.
he should be, at most professional while, applying those judgments. Should not be an hit and trial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that may be
Very,
added to
very
this
good
one.
point, Gurmeet. Very good points. Anyone else would like to add before we summarize? Vineet, Sandeep, Ulak, Avneet.
So he or she should be abide by the rules of AICPA code of conduct, and it should be in
Mhm.
a professional manner where the all the rules and regulations have been followed.
Yeah, absolutely true. Like Kashish, Jasprit, Gurmeher. So here, when we are saying about due care, so as an auditor, as a CPA, we need to keep in mind accounting standard, auditing standard issued by AICPA. If you are doing for non-issuer, if you are doing for issuer, then PCOB auditing standard and SEC rules and regulations. All those things we need to keep in mind, and especially like the Gurmeha, which you bring the point is very much valid, as when auditor is applying the judgment or when auditor is testing the management judgment. So there also it's very much important from the CPA standpoint of view to provide to give the due care of the respective assumptions taken by the management, or if auditor is taking any assumption, so what are the basis or reasonable basis or justified basis for that? So for example, if you are testing the provisions, let's say provision for any litigation or provision for warranty or provision for any long-term employment benefit, right? In that, management has taken certain assumption. How you are validating those assumption, what all things you are keeping in mind when you are validating those assumptions. Let's say, for example, you are reviewing warranty provision in which like management has taken like previous 5 years actual sales and returns on account of warranty, expenditure on account of warranty, and basis that they come up with certain formula and derive certain percentage of sales is required to be booked as a warranty provision, right? So looking at all those 5 years numbers which management has taken as a base, from where those numbers are coming, are those numbers appropriate or not, or is the percentage which is driving is being in line with the industry average warranty provision or not, right? So if there is any additional guidance required as per ASC 342 or 326, then would those guidance being applied by the company or not? So all those things keep in mind is come as a due care, which has come from the education. Like when you study the CPA, you understand the rules, regulation, SEC rules, PCOB standard, AICPA standard, as well as accounting standard, gap, and all those things. And then as and when you apply those standards through experience, then you will be in a better position for application of the due care in the respective course of actions, right? Next one is scope and nature of work. So here as a CPA, we should not take any work which is in non-compliance with the AICPA professional code of conduct. That means which is unethical work. We should not take any work which is unethical or damage to the reputation of the CPA, damage to the reputation of AICPA. So we should always keep in mind the compliance of the code before accepting any work. So this is also very much important. We'll be learning in detail about all the 6 principles, but high level, if I say about responsibility. So here, being a CPA, there are certain professional responsibility and there are certain moral responsibility that you need to adhere to, because like AICPA has created their own brand across the globe and their brand value is being attached to each one of you. So you have to follow certain professionalism, you have to follow certain moral values for anything and everything you do. Right. Second is public interest. Again, I'm repeating public interest. Why it is being important? Because like public trust on CPAs. If CPA is signing on any balance sheet, signing on any income tax return, or signing on any, you can say attestation engagement, or signing on any, you can say expenditure account, income account, certification kind of things, then public as well as government authority also trust on the CPA. So there are certain responsibility attached to attached with each CPA to adhere to. That means they need to do whatever is in the best interest of the public rather than their own personal interest. Right. Third is again like integrity, act with integrity. That means act with honesty. Say what is right, say what is wrong, say what is right, or follow the rules, regulations, law, compliance with all those things. Work with objectivity and independence, apply your due care, and then scope and nature of the work whenever you are accepting, make sure it is adhere to the AICPA professional code of conduct. It should not be you should not be doing any work which is not adhere to the AICPA professional code of conduct, which may result into the damage of the reputation of the CPA or AICPA. Right. So these are 6 rules. These are 6 principles, sorry, my bad, and there are 9 rules also. So we'll be discussing all these rules in detail. Right. First one is integrity and objectivity. If you see like principle number 4, objectivity and independence, it is being very much if you see like third principle, which is integrity, and fourth principle, objectivity and independence, and if you see rule number 1 and 2, which is integrity and objectivity and independence rule, they are very much common, right? And they are supporting each other and they are layering on each other, right? So we'll be discussing in detail about like integrity rule, objectivity rule, independence rules. Then there are certain general standard rules. When there is no rules applicable to the respective situation, then as a CPA you need to follow general standard rules. So you know, in the rule book also probably you might have studied in your graduation. There are 2 kind of rule. One is general rule and then second is specific rule. If there is no specific rule, then you need to follow the general rule. Are you guys aware of this terminologies? Have you heard this before? Specific rule or general rule?
No.
No, I didn't, sir. No.
No. So for any particular matter, like it's an interpretation of law basically. So I'm not sure whether you have studied law or not in your graduation, but it's a general interpretation of law. If there is specific rule, specific law or specific regulation to any particular matter, then you need to follow that specific law, rule, regulation or law. If there is no specific rule to that particular situation, then you need to follow the general rule.
Yeah, we read it, interpretation of statutes.
Yes, interpretation of statute.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So specific rules prevail over the general rule, right? So when you have specific rules, specific guidance given for certain situation, then you need to follow those. If those are not given, then you need to follow the general rules and regulations. So here, if you see the third one, general standard rule, if no other interpretation or no other rules are being applicable, then as a CPA, you need to follow general standard rule, right? Fourth one is accounting principle rule. They are more inclined toward the gap, right? Next is act of discreditability rule. So act of discreditability rule means those act which may result into discreditability of the CPA and AICPA. Right? We will be discussing in detail all these 9 rules. Next is confidential client information rule. So as a CPA, it is being our prime responsibility to ensure the client confidentiality of their information. We should not be sharing client information in general public or to any person who is not relevant for the respective audit engagement, right? So you can discuss within the engagement team, but none of the engagement team members should be discussed outside the work, outside the engagement, right? So for example, being a CPA, we are very much close to the top management. We are very much close to the financial statement. We are very much close to the numbers which are expected to come out after the completion of the audit or completion of the review, right? We have a lot of insider information. So it's being our prime responsibility should not be sharing those information to the outside world, right? Otherwise, there are huge penalties on the CPA, and many CPAs are already in imprisonment because of violation of this confidential client information rule, right? It has huge imprisonment as well as penalty if you do not follow those client confidential information rules. For example, if your client is going for any acquisition or any merger, and in future, like today, let's say the price of the share of your client is, let's say, $100 per share, right? But they are in process of, let's say, acquisition. For example, if you are doing the audit of Facebook, right? So 3 years ago, when the Facebook has done the acquisition of the WhatsApp, right? It was it was almost 3 months before the actual 3 to 4 months before the acquisition date. The CPAs who are doing the audit of Facebook are already aware of that management is pursuing toward the acquisition of the WhatsApp. So, but as a CPA, when you are conducting the audit of Facebook, you should not be disclosing that Facebook is going for an acquisition to the WhatsApp, right? It was like their share price will change, and then people start holding their shares, right? Same way, like when I was doing the audit of Intel, so on an average in a year, Intel do like around 10 to 15 acquisitions, right? If you see like the Alphabet, you know what is Alphabet? Which company name is
Google
Alphabet?
parent company.
Google, yes, sir. Google
Google parent company.
Yeah. Do you know how many acquisitions they do in a year?
No, but quite a lot.
More than 150.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So being an auditor, we know all those things, and but it's being our responsibility not to disclose those information to outside world, right? Next one is contingent fee rule. So here there are certain restrictions that as a CPA we should not be taking any audit assignment or attestation assignment on a contingent fee, right? The fee should be fixed. So fee should not be contingent upon happening or non-happening of certain events. So there are certain rules to it that as a CPA, we should not take any assignment of which like fees are based on happening or non-happening of certain few uncertain future event, right? Like especially you can say in the litigation matter, there are like you might have seen like some lawyers charge the fees based on like winning of the case. So they said like 5% of the total value, 10% of the total value of the amount I'll help you bring in from your opponent, right? So those kind of fees arrangement we should not be doing. So because that will impair our independence. If we let's say for example any certification in client is required any certification for let's say any government grant or any government funding or financial aid, so we should not be saying like our fees would be 5% of the financial aid or 10% of the government grant. We should not be doing it. Our amount should be fixed based on like the number of time, energy and effort we'll be putting in place. right? Next one is the commission and referral fee rule. So there are certain restriction also. You should not be charging commission or referral fee if you are selling any item of the client. So for example, if you have seen, like in India, there are many people who are insurance agent, right? So if you are a CPA and you are doing audit of that respective insurance company, you should not be working as an insurance agent for that company, right? So those kind of restrictions are there, but there are certain exception to the general rule also. We'll be discussing more in detail on each of those exception to the general rules also, right? Next one is form of organization and the name rules. So what all kind of form of an organization as a CPA firm you can have, right? So you can have your sole proprietor, you can have your individual, you can have your partnership, you can have your LLP, you can have your LLC, but there are certain format which you cannot be, like S corporation, C corporation, right? And there are certain restrictions on the name rules also, what a CPA firm name could be or could not be. So we'll be discussing all these rules and regulations in detail, right? So far, we have discussed like all the 6 principles, which we are going to discuss in detail, but high level we got the overview, and we discussed all the 9 rules, which we are going to, you can say, discuss in detail all these 9 rules, but high level I have given you overview what you can expect in these 9 rules and 6 principles, right? And then there are certain interpretation and guidance. What is interpretation and guidance? Any idea? Any idea what is interpretation and guidance and why it's there in any professional code of conduct?
Generally, when we have written the main act, or in this case, the principles and rules have been written. Look for the interpretation of these. If there is doubt in any of the main stated text, then we can refer to this interpretation and what is the AICPA guiding its members to do.
Absolutely, absolutely true. Yeah. Anyone else would like to add to Ayush? Yeah, Vineet, Pulak, Garvit. Okay, no worries. Like, yeah, Ayush, you rightly said, like interpretation and guidance are more explanation to the context which is in the principles and the rules which has been mentioned by the AICP. So any you can say law or any regulation, they always add interpretation and explanation and guidance section to those respective law, rules, regulations, so that it helps the general public as a layman to understand the objective and the context for which that respective law, code of conduct, principle, rules, regulation has been made. So those are kind of explanatory statement and interpretation of the you can say details, or you can say the facts or the information given in the respective law, regulations, rules and principles, right? So here also there are 13 interpretation and guidance given in the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct. One is like practicing outside the USA, including foreign auditor. For example, you qualified CPA and you want to do your own practice outside the USA, right? Can you do your own US CPA practice? The answer is yes, right? So those guidance and interpretation is being provided here in AICPA Code of Professional Conduct, and to those you can say CPAs who are doing practice outside the USA, what all rules, regulations they need to adhere to for the professional code of conduct has been given here, right? Second is covered member. So in independence rules, we'll be discussing, we'll get to know a lot, or we'll be discussing more in detail about what is covered member and what is not covered member. So here in the interpretation, it has given a clear definition who all are covered member. Like for example, like earlier we discussed about related parties, who all are related parties. Same way for any audit engagement, There are so many members who will be working in that engagement is called covered member for that engagement, right? So those explanation has been given here in the interpretation and guidance, right? Next one is immediate family and close relative. So here in the independence rule, this is being very much important. What is covered member and their immediate family member and close relative, right? So we will be discussing in detail about what covered under the immediate family member and the close relative of the covered member, and how their involvement in the respective stage may result into impairment of the independence of the CPA, right? Next one is position to influence. What is called as a position to influence? That means if any covered member or immediate family member of the covered member is in a position to influence the management, then that particular person is not independent to the audit engagement, respective audit engagement. So these all are like interrelated terms, or you can say terms to be discussed in the same context, majorly in the independence rules. Right. Next one is key position, which is like which can be from like CPA firm side. It can be partner, quality review partner, senior manager, or like office managing partner. And from the client side is CEO, CFO, COO, CTO, board of directors, shareholders, all those things, right? And the family relationship with the attest client. So we'll be discussing, there are certain interpretation and guidance given in which it has been explained what all comes under the family relationship of an attest client, and how those family relationship can impair the independence of the individual for conducting the audit engagement or attestation engagement for that respective client, right? Next, we will be discussing on non-attached service. So yesterday also we discussed brief about non-attached service for the government entities, right? Here, from the CPA standpoint of view, we'll be discussing on the non-attached services and what are the relaxation available for the non-attached services, right? Next is we'll be discussing on appraisal, valuation, and actuarial services. If as a CPA we are providing appraisal services, that means if like your client has hired you to do the valuation of their plant, machinery, building, right? So what all things, what all rules and regulation you need to follow, what all principles and rules you need to adhere to. And if you are providing actuarial services as well to your client, what all things to your audit client you can do, and more importantly, what all audit services or attestation services you cannot provide, right? Next is forensic accounting. Can you provide the forensic accounting services to the audit client or not, right? Those interpretation and guidance has been given over here. Next is internal audit assistance. If you are auditing any client, can you also provide internal audit assistance services or not? If you are providing internal audit assistance services, whether it's an impairment of your independence or not. So all those interpretation and guidance has been given here in 10th point. Next is tax services. If you are auditing any client, what all tax services you can provide to them, and more importantly, what all tax services you cannot provide to them, right? Next is advertising and promotion of your like CPA firm. What all things you can do to promote and advertise, and more importantly, what all advertisement and promotion you cannot do being a CPA firm. Last one is conceptual framework. So these all interpretation and guidance will be learning in detail today, right? So high level, this is all about AICPA professional code of conduct, right? We'll be discussing in detail all the 6 principles, 9 rules, and 13 interpretation and guidance. But at very, very high level, do you see any challenge in absorbing these information?
No.
No, sir.
Looks simple, easy to digest.
Yes, sir.
I think it is getting monotonous. So what we can do before jumping into the core context, can we do certain practice question so that we get to know the flavor, what can be expected, what we can expect in exam?
Sure.